What if one of the biggest reasons wealthy people continue to grow while others stay stuck is not what they add to their lives, but what they deliberately remove from it? Because when most people imagine success, they imagine more connections, more activity, more communication, and more social engagement. But in reality, many of the world's most successful and high-performing individuals move in the opposite direction. Instead of expanding their social exposure, they carefully reduce it. Instead of staying constantly available, they intentionally create distance. And instead of living in noise, they choose silence and control. This is where a very misunderstood concept comes in: isolation. But this is not loneliness in the emotional sense. It is not about being disconnected from society. It is about strategic isolation, a deliberate choice to protect focus, mental clarity, decision-making ability, and personal security. Understanding why the rich choose isolation reveals something very important about how success is actually built in the real world. The difference between social life and strategic isolation. Most people associate isolation with something negative. They think of it as being alone, disconnected, or separated from others. But for high-level individuals, isolation is not emotional. It is functional. They are not isolating themselves because they dislike people. They are isolating themselves because attention is one of their most valuable resources. Every conversation, every interaction, and every external influence consumes mental energy. And when your decisions impact businesses, investments, or large amounts of capital, even small distractions can create significant consequences. So instead of being constantly available to everyone, they become extremely selective about where their attention goes. This creates a controlled environment where focus is protected and mental clarity is preserved. Why focus becomes a wealth multiplier. At higher levels of success, focus becomes more valuable than time itself. This is because the quality of decisions matters more than the quantity of actions. Wealthy individuals understand that distraction is expensive. Every unnecessary interruption breaks thinking patterns, reduces efficiency, and weakens long-term strategic thinking. In contrast, uninterrupted focus allows deep work, better planning, and more accurate decision-making. This is why many high-performing individuals structure their lives in a way that reduces external noise. They do not constantly engage in social activities or unnecessary communication because they understand that attention fragmentation leads to reduced performance. In simple terms, focus creates better thinking, and better thinking creates better outcomes. Isolation as a form of mental protection. Another important reason behind isolation is mental protection. When individuals reach a certain level of success or influence, they are constantly exposed to opinions, expectations, and external pressure. If they are not careful, this can influence their decisions in ways that are not aligned with their long-term goals. By reducing unnecessary exposure to external voices, they create a mental environment where decisions are based on strategy rather than emotion or pressure. This form of isolation allows them to maintain clarity. It reduces confusion and prevents unnecessary emotional interference in important decisions. The role of security and privacy. As wealth increases, so does visibility. And with visibility comes risk. High net worth individuals often become targets for financial exploitation, misinformation, or unwanted attention. Because of this, privacy becomes a form of protection. Isolation is not only about focus, it is also about safety. By limiting exposure, they reduce unnecessary risk and maintain control over their personal and financial environment. This is why many wealthy individuals prefer private spaces, controlled environments, and carefully managed interactions. And it is not about hiding. It is about protecting what they have built. Why too much social exposure can slow growth. For most people, constant social interaction feels normal. But at higher levels of ambition and responsibility, excessive social exposure can actually slow down progress. Every interaction requires attention, energy, and emotional processing. When multiplied across dozens of interactions, it can significantly reduce the mental capacity needed for deep thinking and strategic planning. The ultra-rich understand this trade-off very clearly. They prioritize depth over breadth. Instead of maintaining large amounts of casual interaction, they focus on fewer but more meaningful and strategic relationships. This allows them to preserve mental energy for high-value decisions. Isolation does not mean disconnection. It is important to understand that isolation in this context does not mean complete withdrawal from society. It does not mean cutting off relationships or avoiding all human interaction. Instead, it means intentional selection. It means choosing when to engage, who to engage with, and how much energy to invest in external environments. Many successful individuals still maintain strong networks, but those networks are structured and purposeful. They are not random or emotionally draining. They serve specific roles in business, strategy, and personal growth. So isolation is not about absence of connection. It is about control over connection. The balance between isolation and influence. One of the most interesting aspects of high-level success is the balance between isolation and influence. While isolation protects focus, influence requires interaction. This is why successful individuals do not completely disconnect from the world. Instead, they design their environment in a way that allows them to step into social or business settings when necessary and withdraw when deep focus is required. This controlled rhythm between engagement and isolation allows them to operate at a higher level of efficiency than those who are constantly exposed to external distractions. What most people get wrong about isolation. The biggest misunderstanding is assuming that isolation is a sign of emotional distance or social failure. In reality, for high-performing individuals, and it is often a sign of discipline and clarity. While many people seek constant stimulation, entertainment, and social validation, those focused on long-term success often reduce these inputs intentionally. They understand that mental space is required for creativity, strategy, and growth. Without that space, thinking becomes reactive instead of strategic. At the end of the day, isolation is not about being alone. It is about being in control of your environment, your attention, and your decisions. The ultra-rich understand that focus is fragile and security is necessary, so they design their lives in a way that protects both. They reduce unnecessary noise so they can think more clearly, act more strategically, and build more effectively. If this video gave you a new perspective on how success actually works behind the scenes, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more deep, powerful insights like this.